Hi everyone, thank you for joining me for Revelation chapter 5. Before we dive into the text of Revelation 5, it's important that we understand the role of the kinsman redeemer. If you are going along in the workbook, then you will have done your homework and done a study of the book of Ruth. But let me go ahead and review the principles, the story that's happening in Ruth, and the role of the kinsman redeemer, the things we learn about the kinsman redeemer from the book of Ruth. So in chapter 1 of Ruth, we find that Naomi and her husband Elimelech are Jewish, and they're from Bethlehem in Judah. And they traveled to Moab because there was a famine in the land. So they went to Moab because they heard there was food there. While they were at Moab, their two sons, one was named Mahlon and the other was Chilion. Now, Mahlon, his name meant great infirmity or sickly. Isn't that a great name to have? And Chilion means wasting away, failing of eyes. So they had two very physically weak sons. So while they were there, they took for themselves wives of Moabite women. That was strictly forbidden to the Jewish nation. They were not to take Moabite women as wives, but these two sons did. Now, Mahlon's wife was named Orpah, and her name literally means the mane or the neck of an animal. And it comes from the root word to break the back of an animal. So we think her name meant stiff-necked. It's possible that it meant stiff-necked. Chilion's wife, Ruth, her name meant beauty. Well, it came about that both of the sons died, the husband died, and that left three vulnerable women. Two were Moabites and one was Jewish. Well, Naomi was heartbroken and she wanted to return to Bethlehem. So she released her daughters-in-law and she said, "Y'all are still young. There are no children. You owe nothing to me. Go back to your father's house and you can wed again and you can have a family." Well, Orpah took her up on that. Orpah went back to her family, but Ruth decided to stay with Naomi. She said she loved her. And the famous verse from Ruth 1:6 that says, that's where the story begins. Ruth said, "Do not urge me." It's in verse 16. But Ruth said, "Do not urge me to leave you or turn back from following you. For where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Thus may the Lord do to me and worse, if anything but death parts you and me." So Ruth was making a covenant with Naomi to stick with her. So Naomi and Ruth returned to Israel. They returned to Bethlehem in Judah. And that's where we pick up the story in chapter 2. And let me read the story to you. Now Naomi had a kinsman of her husband, a man of great wealth of the family of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth, the Moabitess, said to Naomi, "Please let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after one in whose sight I may find favor." And she said to her, "Go, my daughter." So she departed and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. So there was a principle for widows and orphans, or for the poor, that once the workers of a field gleaned or reaped the field, they were to leave the corners and the edges for the orphans and widows. For the poor could come in behind them and pick up the leftovers. So they were told to leave the corners. So she was doing this according to law. So She happened to come to the portion of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the family Elimelech. Now behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said to the reapers, May the Lord be with you. And they said to him, May the Lord bless you. Then Boaz said to his servant who was in charge of the reapers, Whose young woman is this? The servant in charge of the reapers replied, She is the young Moabite woman who returned with Naomi from the land of Moab. And she said, Please let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. Thus she came and has remained from the morning until now. She has been sitting in the house for a little while. Then Boaz said to Ruth, Listen carefully, my daughter. Do not go to glean in another field. Furthermore, do not go on from this one, but stay here with my maids. Let your eyes be on the field which they reap, and go after them. Indeed, I have commanded the servants not to touch you. So he's pledging security and safety for her. When you are thirsty, go to the water jars and drink from what the servants draw. Then she fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and said to him, Why have I found favor in your sight, that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner? Boaz replied to her, All that you have done for your mother-in-law after the death of your husband has been fully reported to me. And how you left your father and your mother and the land of your birth and came to a people that you did not previously know. May the Lord reward your work, and your wages be full from the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to seek refuge. Then she said, I have found favor in your sight, my Lord, for you have comforted me, and indeed have spoken kindly to your maidservant, though I am not like one of your maidservants. At mealtime, Boaz said to her, Come here, that you may eat of the bread, and dip your piece of bread in the vinegar. So she sat beside the reapers, and he served her roasted grain. And she ate and was satisfied, and had some left. When she rose to glean, Boaz commanded his servant, saying, Let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not insult her. Also you shall purposely pull out for her some grain from the bundles, and leave it, that she may glean, and do not rebuke her. So they were purposely supposed to leave a little bit extra for Ruth. So she gleaned in the field until evening. Then she beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley, which is about 3/5 of a bushel. She took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. She also took it out and gave Naomi what she had left after she was satisfied. Her mother-in-law then said to her, Where did you glean today? And where did you work? May he who took notice of you be blessed. So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked, and said, The name of the man with whom I work today is Boaz. Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, May he be blessed of the Lord, who has not withdrawn his kindness to the living and to the dead. Again, Naomi said to her, The man is our relative. He is one of our closest relatives. Then Ruth the Moabitess said, Furthermore, he said to me, You should stay close to my servants until they have finished all my harvest. Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, It is good, my daughter, that you go out with his maids, so that the others do not fall upon you in another field. So she stayed close by the maids of Boaz in order to glean until the end of the barley harvest and the wheat harvest, and she lived with her mother-in-law. Chapter 3. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, My daughter, shall I not seek security for you, that it may be well with you? Now is not Boaz our kinsman, with whom maids you were? Behold, he winnows barley at the threshing floor tonight. Wash yourself, therefore, and anoint yourself, and put on your best clothes, and go down to the threshing floor, but do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. It shall be when he lies down, that you shall notice the place where he lies, and you shall go and uncover his feet and lie down. Then he will tell you what you shall do. She said to her, All that you say I will do. So she went down to the threshing floor and did according to all that her mother-in-law had commanded her. When Boaz had eaten and drunk it, and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain, and she came secretly and uncovered his feet and lay down. It happened in the middle of the night that the man was startled and bent forward, and behold, a woman was lying at his feet. He said, "Who are you?" And she answered, "I am Ruth, your maid. So spread your covering over your maid, for you are a close relative." So what she was doing was not, it was not a sexual advance. What she was saying was, you are a kinsman redeemer. You are one of Naomi's closest relatives. And when she was saying, spread your garment over me, remember the authority was in the hem of the garment. And she was asking to be put under his authority, his leadership. So she was asking that he be her kinsman redeemer. Then he said, "May you be blessed of the Lord, my daughter. You have shown your last kindness to be better than the first by not going after young men, whether poor or rich. Now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you whatever you ask, for all my people in the city know that you are a woman of excellence. Now, it is true, I am a close relative. However, there is a relative closer than I." So the role of the kinsman redeemer was a redemptive right. When a man died, his wife, his closest brother, the oldest brother in the family, had an opportunity to redeem the wife. He could take her and bear children with her so that his brother's name would continue. He had free will. He could choose to accept the wife or not. If he rejected his brother's wife, then the role went to the next. He could go to the uncle or the next closest relative. Again he said, "Give me the cloak that is on you and hold it." So she held it, and he measured 6 measures of barley and laid it on her. Then she went into the city. When she came to her mother-in-law, she said, "How did it go, my daughter?" And she told her all the man had done for her. And she said, "These 6 measures of barley he gave to me, for he said, 'Do not go to your mother-in-law empty-handed.'" So this was significant, these 6 measures of barley. It was like a deposit. It was custom for, it communicated that I will not rest until the matter is settled. It was like earnest money, the amount of earnest money. And she said, "Wait, my daughter, until you know how the matter turns out, for the man will not rest until he has settled it today." Chapter 4. Now Boaz went up to the gate and sat down there, and behold, the closest relative of whom Boaz spoke was passing by. So he said, "Turn aside, friend, sit down here." And he turned aside and sat down. He took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, "Sit down here." So they sat down. Then he said to the closest relative, "Naomi, who has come back from the land of Moab, has to sell the piece of land which belonged to our brother Elimelech. So I thought to inform you, saying, buy it before those who are sitting here and before the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if not, tell me, that I may know. For there is no one but you to redeem it, and I am after you." And the man said, "I will redeem it." Then Boaz said, "On the day that you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you must also acquire Ruth the Moabitess, the widow of the deceased, in order to raise up the name of the deceased on his inheritance." The closest relative said, "I cannot redeem it myself because I would jeopardize my own inheritance. Redeem it for yourself. You may have my right of redemption, for I cannot redeem it." Now this was the custom in former times in Israel concerning the redemption and the exchange of land to confirm any matter. A man removed his sandal and gave it to another, and this was the manner of attestation in Israel. So the closest relative said to Boaz, "Buy it for yourself," and he removed his sandal. Then Boaz said to the elders and all the people, "You are witnesses today that I have bought from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech and all that belonged to Chilion and Mahlon. Moreover, I have acquired Ruth the Moabitess, the widow of Mahlon, to be my wife in order to raise up the name of the deceased on his inheritance, so that the name of the deceased will not be cut off from his brothers or from the court of his birthplace. You are witnesses today." So all of this interaction with Boaz and the closest relative and Naomi and Ruth, this whole story shows the attributes of a kinsman redeemer. So the role of the kinsman redeemer, first of all, had to be a close relative, had to be a kinsman. He also had to be able to perform the obligation. He had to have the money to purchase the land and acquire the wife. He also must be willing. Notice that the closest relative was not willing. He was able, but he was not willing. He said that it would jeopardize his own inheritance. And he must assume all the obligations, not just the land, but he had to acquire the wife and he had to raise up children in the deceased name to protect the inheritance. So, had to be a kinsman, had to be able to perform, must be willing to perform, and must assume all the obligations. So that happens to be the role of the kinsman redeemer. So now let's turn to Revelation chapter 5, and let's look at what that has to do with Revelation. Chapter 5, verse 1. I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a book written inside and on the back, sealed up with 7 seals. Now, this scroll, it was a scroll, and the scroll was written on the inside, of course, but on the outside, there were things written, and it was sealed. Normally, on the outside were instructions of who had the right or the authority to break the seal. So it's just like a deed of sale or a will. For us, the executor is the one who has the authority to read the will to everyone else. And so that's basically what the writing on the outside indicates. It was instructions of who could open. And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the book and to break its seals?" Notice they're looking for someone worthy. It didn't say who had authority. It said who is worthy to break the seals. And no one in heaven or on the earth or under the earth was able to open the book or to look in it. Then I began to weep greatly because no one was found worthy to open the book or look into it. And one of the elders, now isn't this strange, because this is John writing this, and John was not remembering who Jesus was, his power, his authority, his honor, that he was fully God, that he was fully man. So let's continue to read. Notice in verse 5 who responds. And one of the elders, this is one of the 24 elders, one of the elders said to me, "Stop weeping. Behold, the Lion that is from the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has overcome so as to open the book and its 7 seals." And I saw between the throne with the 4 living creatures and the elders a lamb standing as if slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. And he came and he took the book out of the right hand of him who sat on the throne. When he had taken the book, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each one holding a harp and golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. And they sang, who? The 24 elders. They refers to the 24 elders. They sang a new song, saying, "Worthy are you to take the book and to break its seals, for you were slain and purchased for God with your blood men from every tribe and tongue and people and nation. You have made them to be a kingdom of priests to our God, and they will reign upon the earth." Then I looked, and I heard the voice of many angels around the throne, and the living creatures, and the elders, and the number of them was myriads and myriads, and thousands of thousands, saying with a loud voice, "Worthy is the Lamb that was slain to receive power and riches and wisdom and might and honor and glory and blessing." And every created thing which is in heaven, on the earth, and under the earth, and on the sea, and all the things in them, I heard saying, "To him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb be blessing and honor and glory and dominion forever and ever." And the 4 living creatures kept saying, "Amen." And the elders fell down and worshiped. This chapter is filled with so many amazing things. So let's go back and look at who is worthy to open the book. And why is this scroll significant? First of all, one of the elders said, "Stop weeping. The Lion that is from the tribe of Judah." So this indicates that this is one of the requirements that was written on the outside of the scroll. He had to be from the tribe of Judah. The second thing was he had to have the title, the Root of David. He had to be in the line of David. He also had, it says he had to, he saw a lamb standing as if slain. So he had to have sacrificed his life. It also said he had 7 horns and 7 eyes. So let's go back and look. We'll look at some cross-references to see what the 7 horns and the 7 eyes are. First of all, we know he had to be from David's line, and he also had to be from the tribe of Judah. When let's talk about the title for a second. There were 2 titles used. One was King of the Jews. These 2 titles refer to the King of the Jews. The Lion from the tribe of Judah and the Root of David both refer to King of the Jews. And that's the same title that Pontius Pilate posted on the cross at the crucifixion. Do you remember when he wrote on the cross, he wrote Jesus the Nazarene, King of the Jews, and he wrote it in 3 different languages. And the Pharisees came to him and said, "Change it. Right? He said, 'I am King of the Jews,' not the King of the Jews." And Pilate said, "I have written what I have written." And what makes that significant is if you look at the acrostic of that with the Hebrew letters spell out Yahweh. That's why it was prophetic. That's why he would not choose to, why Pontius Pilate would not change what he had written. Okay, so now let's look at the 7 horns. The 7 horns are a symbol for authority or power. And there are several references to this: Deuteronomy 33:17, 1 Kings 22:11, Zechariah 1:18, and Psalm 75:4. We're going to look at Zechariah 1:18 specifically. And Zechariah 1:18 says, Then I lifted my eyes and looked, and behold, there were 4 horns. So I said to the angel who was speaking with me, What are these? And he answered me, These are the horns which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. So horns speak of power. They speak of power. They're also a symbol of honor. If you look at horns as a shofar, they are symbols of honor. And the cross references are 1 Samuel 2, 1 through 10, Psalm 89:17, Psalm 24:11, Psalm 89:17 and 24, Psalm 112, 9 and 10, and Psalm 148, verse 14. And these indicate that the horn is a symbol of honor. So let's look at the 7 eyes now. It says in Revelation, it had 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. Now, we've already looked before at the 7 spirits of God. The 7 eyes are the 7 spirits. And we looked at the 7 spirits in Isaiah 11, and we found out that, I believe it was I'll probably not remember all of them by heart, so let me see if I can just turn back to Isaiah 11. The Spirit of the Lord, the Spirit of wisdom, the Spirit of understanding, the Spirit of counsel, the Spirit of strength, the Spirit of knowledge, and the Spirit of the fear of the Lord. Those are the 7 spirits that are sent out into all the earth. But there's also another cross-reference to the 7 eyes as being the 7 spirits of God. In Zechariah 4:10, Zechariah 4:10, we see this verse, For who has despised the day of small things? But these 7 will be glad when they see the plumb line in the hand of Zerubbabel. These are the eyes of the Lord, which range to and fro throughout the earth. These are the 7 eyes of the Lord, which range or roam to and fro throughout the earth. So the 7 eyes are the 7 spirits of God. There's also a reference, if we look at Zechariah 3, 8 and 9. Now listen, Joshua the high priest, you and your friends who are sitting in front of you, indeed, they are men who are a symbol, for behold, I am going to bring my servant the branch. For behold, the stone that I have set before you, Joshua, on one stone are 7 eyes. Behold, I will engrave an inscription on it, declares the Lord of hosts, and I will remove the iniquity of the land in one day. In that day, declares the Lord of hosts, every one of you will invite his neighbor to sit under his vine and under his fig tree. Notice the mention of a stone. Who is the stone? The stone that the builders rejected. Upon this rock I will build my church. The stone, the rock, is always a symbol for Jesus Christ. The branch is always a symbol for the Messiah. And here he says that the eyes, the 7 eyes, are on the stone. The 7 eyes are the 7 spirits of God. So the Spirit of the Lord is on Jesus. That's what these verses in Zechariah are prophesying. So when we go back to Revelation 5, see how it all fits together and how everything is explained? And he says that the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. So the vision that John saw in verse 6 was, I saw between the throne and the 4 living creatures and the elders a lamb standing as if slain. What was he doing? Standing. Do you remember in the book of Hebrews that where Jesus is seated? He's seated on his Father's throne, according to the book of John. He's seated on the throne with the majesty on high. He's sitting at the right hand of the majesty on high. Let's go back to Hebrews. I want to make sure that I get that scripture right. I'm trying to recall it from memory, and I am messing it up. So let's go. And he is the radiance of his glory and the exact representation of his nature, and upholds all things by the word of his power. When he had made purifications of sin, he sat down at the right hand of the majesty on high. Jesus sat down. When his redemptive work was finished, he sat down. What is he doing now in chapter 5? He is standing. When he came the first time, he was a lamb. He was a suffering servant. He served others continually. He never lorded his godship over others. He came to serve. He washed the feet of his disciples. He lived his life by example. He was a gentle lamb led to the slaughter. And here we have the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, standing. So get ready, because his role is changing in chapter 5. And it's fixing to get very, very exciting. So we see him standing as if slain. And in verse 7 it says, and he, Jesus, came and took the book out of the right hand of him who sat on the throne. So who's holding the scroll? God the Father, sitting on the throne. And remember, the right hand means the hand of authority. So God is holding the scroll, the deed. And Jesus came and took it from the right hand of him who sat on the throne. When he had taken the book, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each one holding a harp. Now this is where people get the misconception that when we die and go to heaven, we're going to float around on clouds playing harps. That's where this comes from. But that's not at all what it means. A harp is an instrument used for praise, and we see it used throughout the book of Psalms. They fell down, each one holding a harp, and golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. Remember, in the tabernacle and the temple, the altar of incense was for the prayers of the saints, and it was a soothing aroma, a fragrant aroma to the Lord. God loves it when we pray. He loves the prayers of the saints. It's a soothing aroma to him. It blesses him when we pray. So they had the harps of praise, the bowls full of prayers, and they sang a new song. Worthy are you. This is what they're saying to Jesus. They're singing a new song. Worthy are you to take the book and to break its seals. Notice that this is the 24 elders. Nowhere in Scripture does it ever say that angels sing. I don't know if you ever know that or not, but angels say, they cry out, they rejoice, they praise, but it never says that they sing. That's something that God has gifted to us, his people. And the 24 elders represent us, and they sing, worthy are you to take the book and to break its seals, for you were slain and purchased for God with your blood men from every tribe, tongue, people, and nation. That's what was written on the outside of the scroll. That was the requirements that the kinsman redeemer needed. He had to be fully God, but fully human. He had to be a kinsman to all mankind, every tribe, tongue, and nation. Jesus had to be willing. He had to be a close relative, and he was fully human while staying fully God. And he had to be willing, and he had to be able to redeem us, and he was. You have made them to be a kingdom and priests to our God, and they will reign upon the earth. You have made them to be a kingdom and priests. This is the kingdom of God. He has made us to be a kingdom, his believers. And we're also to serve as priests. Priests minister to God. Priests minister the work of the service. And they will reign upon the earth. So we will reign with him. Then I looked and I heard a voice of many angels around the throne and the living creatures and the elders. So all the angels of heaven now have surrounded the throne, have surrounded the elders, have surrounded us. And the numbers of them was myriads of myriads. Now myriads is 10,000. 10,000s and 10,000s and thousands of thousands. Too many to count. Too many to number. There were so many. And they were, note in verse 12, now my version says they were saying with a loud voice. The angels weren't singing. The 24 elders sang a new song. The angels were saying with a loud voice, worthy is the Lamb that was slain to receive 7 things. Here's another list of 7s. He's worthy to receive power, riches, wisdom, might, honor, glory, and blessing. 7 things. And every created thing which is in heaven and on the earth and under the earth and on the sea and all the things in them, I heard saying, to him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb, so that's God and Jesus, be blessing and honor and glory and dominion forever and ever. 4 things. 4 things. And the 4 living creatures kept saying, Amen. And remember that amen means truly. This is the truth. The 4 living creatures kept saying, not singing, saying, Amen. And the elders fell down and worshiped. So here we have a mention of Jesus as our kinsman redeemer. He fulfilled all the requirements. He was the closest relative. He was willing. He was able, and he assumed all the obligations. He was worthy to take the book out of the hand of the Father. He was standing. So we see now that, we already seen in the letters to the churches that Jesus holds the keys to death and Hades. And he received those keys when he conquered death and the grave. And he emptied out the paradise side of Hades. So he's held the keys to the earth. Father has held the deed to the earth all this time. But in chapter 5, Jesus stands up. And now he's the lion. And now he's taken the deed. And he's taken the keys to the kingdom. And he's coming back. And he is going to set up his kingdom on earth. He is going to bind Satan for 1,000 years. And we are going to reign with Jesus forever. We are going to be his kingdom, and we are going to serve as kings and priests unto our God. So great, great things are coming for those who are in the throne room of heaven right now. However, we're fixing to see the wrath of the Lamb. When we get to chapter 6, we're going to see that every time he breaks a seal, there are 7 seals on this scroll, and every time he breaks a seal, something happens on earth, and it's wrath. And this is referred to as the wrath of the Lamb. And the seals and the trumpets all happen in the first 3.5 years of the tribulation. So stay tuned, because when we get to chapter 6, we're going to see what happens when those seals are released. So that is all for today. Chapter 5 is so very exciting. I hope you enjoyed learning about the role of the kinsman redeemer in the book of Ruth and what it means, and how, we've always heard that the first time Jesus came, he came as a lamb, but next time he comes, he's coming as a roaring lion with authority. And now we see where Jesus has been seated at the right hand of the throne of the Majesty on high, and now he's standing up in the midst of us, in the midst of the lampstand, and he's coming back, y'all. He is coming back. And so stay tuned. Read chapter 6 before our next lesson. Y'all have a blessed, wonderful week, and we'll see you next time. Love you guys. Bye-bye.